Reading is fun. Wow, I'm really running out of intro ideas, aren't I? Okay, so manga, you've heard of it. It's like anime for people who get shoved even deeper into their lockers. I would know because I read it at school. Until like 2 years ago, I've never actually read a manga. The only reason I have now is because of the written and illustrated by Noriyuki Konishi. Yes, the person who made the comics from the games. With supervision from level 5. Released the first volume on June 28th, 2013 in Japan. November 3rd, 2015 for North America. It released reviews, probably. Most books do. Fun fact, the manga was released before the anime and games, and it used an earlier design for the yokai watch and the medals. I don't really see people online talking about these books, and I think there should be remedies. There's 23 of these. Surely they can't all be bad, right? So you all know the intro to every yokai watch game slash anime. Nate finds something that drives him deep into the forest, and then he finds the castle machine, and then meets Whisper. Imagine that, but in like 20 seconds. Time from the start to meeting Whisper is 8 pages. I do kind of expect just getting the intro done over with and not dragging it. To be completely fair, this is your first introduction to yokai watch. I think you're the problem. We also meet Happy Air, and he just dips. And then we meet an actually important character, Shibanyan. He's one of the characters, definitely. He's mostly used for gags and visual jokes, as you will see later. Nate and Whisper head home and were greeted to Nate's parents fighting, and Whisper makes this face, which holy made me laugh so hard. The idea of Whisper comforting Nate, a child he just met, about his parents fighting, is hilarious. Anyway, they summon Chibanya, and a few jokes later, he goes to get Happy Air. Bada bing, bada boom, Nate's parents are happy, yippee yay. That chapter is mostly an intro, so let's go to a different chapter. Chapter 6, Nate's Lucky Day. Trying to get a comic book before it sells out, Nate rides Whisper, pause, as a vehicle, continue, and he gets demolished by a light pole. When he lands, he realizes the money he had for the comic book is gone. He looks around for it and finds Noko, where he's stuffed under a vending machine with the most horrifying face. Oh my god. Nate feeds Noko when he goes back to being not horrifying, and he says how grateful he is for not being captured like other humans have tried to do. Just then, a woman gets her purse snatched by a thief with a knife in his hand. The thief starts charging at Nate. Much of lucky stuff happens to Nate that allows him to dodge and or attack the thief, like getting sprung at but tripping on a baseball, or getting stabbed. Wait, he gets stabbed? What? I mean, it doesn't matter anyway, because he had the book under his shirt. But wow, even a black child got stabbed for a split second is kinda crazy. Well, anyway, he defeats the thief by ricocheting a book into his skull, and then befriends Noko. And there's a chapter about negative buzz, but I'm not talking about it because I'm moving on to Chapter 8, Nate's the Bad Boy. Nate wakes up to Whisper acting like a dumbass, so Whisper is being normal. After beating Whisper in his mission via rock, paper, scissors, they head to school where Nate meets Eddie acting like a dumbass, which isn't normal since he's usually smart. They search for a yokai in his rough raft. Duh. Also, Bad Boy Eddie reminds me of a specific quote from the anime that I can't get out of my head for the past 7 years.
I don't care about nothing at all. Now I'm gonna kick this wall.
This my
Rough Raft makes Nate become a bad boy with poorly replaced Japanese text on his clothes. He domestically abuses Whisper, and Whisper domestically abuses back by throwing sand in Nate's eyes. Whisper summons the yokai when Nate is blinded by sand.
Which in the anime is said to be impossible during season 1, episode 2. Shut the fuck up!
They summon Shibanyan, and he turns into Banyan with more poorly replaced Japanese text. Rough Raft freezes Banyan, loses souls of it. And he abuses Whisper more to block Rough Raft's attack on the mobile Banyan. Then Rough Raft slaps Nate and Whisper away. Powered by this, Banyan, through the power of bullshit, throws his hair and beats the hell out of Rough Raft. And then they become friends via more bullshit that I don't care about. I only went over this chapter to make that hollaback girl edit. Anyway, on to a more interesting and lasting chapter, with a character that appears more than once. Chapter 14, An Ancestor's Wish. Bear and Eddie inform Nate of a suspicious sighting at the temple during nighttime, so Nate and Whisper go check it out. They check out a grave and it's Shogunyan buried halfway in the ground. You may be asking, why is Shogunyan buried halfway in the ground? Well, he's a ghost. I'm going to take a second to say this is a really cool idea. I always thought it was weird how legendaries just existed. Making at least Shogunyan a ghost really differentiates him from the other yokai. Also, the ghost tail looks sick. Shogunyan asks for a favor, and that is to bring Jibanyan to him. They summon Jibanyan mid-next Armiani concert. I'm sorry, Shogunyan, you're only ancestor goons to a cat girl pop group. Like, imagine Shogunyan's reaction when he said he liked that. Whoa, you're my ancestor? Yes, I am Shogunyan. Have you ever heard of Nyektar Meowni? That's some sort of secret fighting technique. Yo, silly, it's a pop group. Here, look at this. Yeah, they're a pop group that dresses up like cat girls. My favorite member is Fiona. Oh, she's so dreamy. Yeah. And my favorite song. I knew you were my ancestor. Hell yeah! I feel so alive! He asks for a favor from Chibanyan, and Chibanyan says no, and he rolls on the floor and screams about it, which honestly is so reasonable. Chibanyan doesn't even visit him. After this tantrum, Chibanyan agrees to help, and what Shogunyan wants is possess Chibanyan and eat dried tuna, which is an interesting request. Chibanyan, the greedy that he is, says no way to this honestly not weird at all request. Chibanyan is being feared by No Way, which makes sense why he's saying no. No reasonable person would say no to that request. No Way falls over and flattens Chibanyan's lazy ass. So Shogunyan possesses Chibanyan and cuts No Way clean in half. No Way repairs himself and they all become friends. Bada bing, bada boom, book over. Now on to... I don't have anything to say. It's the same with the last two books. Yeah, the problem with reviewing these books is the more of a series of 90 jokes made into a book than a story, so it's hard to talk about them like this. So what I'm going to do is make a short summary of the best part from each book until something interesting or worthwhile comes along. Chapter 10, The Legend Luxurious Yokai. The part where Chibanyan gets war flashbacks to Amy and the manga immediately goes back to his bullshit made me laugh really hard. Chapter 32, Behold, the Chibanyan of the Future. They weren't really hard at the panels where they summon Robanyan, and that's cool. Chapter 35, The Girl with the Frozen Breath. I'm only picking this for Ball Chibanyan. I mean, look at him. So perfect. Chapter 47, Honesty is the Best Policy. The multiple fake-out endings were pretty funny. This is the last book before I go in depth again. The best chapter from this book is easily chapter 66. It's just Whisper's backstory, but it's kind of refreshing to see. I'm gonna be straight up, this book and book 9 are, in my opinion, the best books in the series, and that's because of one specific character, Alien. I'll go into why I think that, but let's go over the book first. Starts out very similar to the game as Haley's intro. She goes to pick up a Silly Cutie's action figure to find they're sold out. But in the books, Haley fantasizes about killing resellers in the shop. So real. So real. While Haley's on her way home, Eustachian sets up the watch in a non-suspicious way, and Haley picks it up, becoming the new bearer of the yokai watch. Eustachian asks for Haley's help with a mission, then the chapter ends. And after a chapter Nate's bullshit that I don't care about, we go back to Haley. Haley, being Haley, doesn't want to help Eustachian because he's not an alien. Eustachian tries an ancient tactic held secret for many years, called lying. When that doesn't work, he resorts to pandering, which does work. See kids, when lying doesn't work, pander instead. Eustachian's request is to find Dr. Hughley. Haley says no to his request due to being spirited by No Way, and Eustachian goes into invader mode, which is honestly par for the course. Then Eustachian tells his backstory of Hughley and him. You know the story. Eustachian gets adopted by Dr. Hughley despite being ugly, and after becoming friends, he dies in a rocket experiment. After this, Haley finally decides to help, like for good this time, no going back. After getting some help from Tattletale, they locate Hughley in a hospital. He's arrested with a rocket's failure and Eustachian's death. Heartbroken seeing him like this, Eustachian is ready to reinvigorate his passion by building a rocket with yokai powers. There are a few more Nate chapters that I still don't care about, and the final chapter of the book is another Haley and Eustachian chapter. They head out into the woods to start building the rocket, and for the first part, they need Blazion, which they immediately find. Unwilling to help at first, he's invested in the cause by Eustachian giving a long speech about how he wants to inspire Dr. Hughley to continue his dreams, and Blazion agrees to help, completing 1/4 of the yokai they need. I know I glossed over Nate's chapters, but Haley and Anne's chapters are just better in every way. Chapters are funnier and it's due to her. She's more upbeat and less neutral than Nate, which is perfect for a manga whose only goal is to make people laugh. Plus, Haley's chapters have more serious parts. Nice to mix the most comedy in a story that I really enjoyed. Nate's chapters just don't have that. It's just straight stuff happening, which isn't bad, but having a story makes it a bit better. Haley and Anne is more sporadic, which complements the humor in the manga very well, because the humor in the manga is also very random too. This one is just a better book 8, which is good because book 8 was already great. The only thing that's even somewhat important from the non-Haley chapters is that Nate gets the Model 0 for half a second, and immediately becomes irrelevant due to the introduction of the Model U. Haley's chapter starts out with them receiving 2 more parts for the rocket. They head out to look for Static King and Bizarria. Static King is located trying the totally not Jet Neon plane, don't look at their chapters, they're irrelevant. Static King immediately becomes friends with Haley because he's chill like that. Static King tries to give Eustachian a handshake, causing an electrical fire, drawing Bizarria near. Some people call it lazy writing, I call it story speed writing. They only have 1 yokai left, Professor. Usapion finishes building the rocket when Haley decides to look for Professor since she's had ungodly luck finding these yokai so far. They immediately find him. Again, story speedrunning. Usapion listens to Professor's non-stop yap when he decides to become friends, completing all the yokai they need. Yes, they do skip Ferdinand for reasons. After befriending all the yokai they need, they bring him to the woods where the rocket is, and that's when it happens, what it's all been leading up to. Dr. Hughley comes to see the rocket. Usapion runs up to Hughley, and Hughley runs straight past him to examine the rocket. He assumes it's a model and walks off, but right before he leaves, they set it off. It goes up higher and higher. Hughley doesn't know how it's working due to it being yokai powered, and it keeps going up until Leilian gets called, and the rocket stalls in the air. Usapion, determined not to let another rocket fail, for his dreams to die, hops onto the rocket and uses his blaster to drive the rocket high into the air, finally pushing the rocket into the atmosphere. Impressed, Dr. Hughley walks off with a new passion to finish his rockets. Then we go to a flashback to Hughley in the hospital. It's revealed he never gave up on his dreams of building a rocket. He just couldn't get over the loss of Usapion. Alien runs after Dr. Hughley and they talk about how he could see Usapion. But he isn't the same person Dr. Hughley met. He's much braver, and he's made so many new friends. And he didn't want Usapion to revert to the scared little animal he adopted. Usapion, I am so happy for you. You see why I think these are the best two books in the series now? Honestly, this is the best scene in the manga emotion-wise, and there isn't many moments like this, even though it's actually kind of good when they do more story-oriented stuff like this. It doesn't go on like this, though, which brings us to... None of the chapters are really good in this book, but the best one out of them is chapter 88, the attack of the new and improved Robanyan. Nate and Haley get introduced to each other in this chapter, and they never do anything with this. Also, at the end of the book, we get introduced to Kamenyan. He's going to be important in a few books, so keep him in mind. And the best chapter is chapter 99, and don't forget the breaks, where Sapion just bullies Chibanyan for an entire chapter. There's two other chapters that I have to go over because they're important to the story, air quotes. Chapter 100, a new yokai arrives. Kamenyan. Remember what I said was going to be important like 60 words ago? Yeah, that's happening right now. Pay attention. Key jingle, key jingle. He waltzes into Nate's house and befriends him. He says he's from BBQ, but doesn't sound like it. Nate doesn't question this because, quote from Whisper, it's just one of those things that can't be explained. It does get explained in the story, don't worry. His backstory is the exact same as Chibanyan, and his goals are too. That's all you need to know from this chapter. Now that other chapter I was talking about, chapter 106, The Way of the Samurai. It starts like Shogunyan's chapter. Nate hears about squeaky ghosts in the mountain and goes to investigate, and meets not Shogunyan, but his less suicidal American partner, Lassus Yanmarai. And they become friends. Also, Yanmarai isn't dead for questioning why Kamenyan doesn't sound like he's from BBQ, and that's all you need to know from this chapter and this book. Halfway through the books, in another book that's nothing but mildly amusing comedy. Best chapter is chapter 113, Synapses in Yokai. Thought the fight scene between Namurai and Sapion was cool. I don't know, I was invested for a minute. Plus, the part at the end of which Yokai would be the main character was funny. Rip the Sight Devil. This book is a lot different from other books because it has a plotline, an original plotline that takes up the entire book. Jump scare, I know, where's my random bullshit happening for no reason? The book starts out with Yanmarai informing Nate of a war. Tad dramatic way to start a book, but okay. Kamenyan wants to tell Nate something, but he's scared to. With the help of Tadale, he spills the beans. You see, after he died, he actually returned home to his version of Amy, Emily. She was bawling her eyes out, looking at an image of her and Kamenyan. He just stays there because he misses her too. Till one day, a UFO appears outside Emily's house. It's the Ghoulfather and his group. Kamenyan tries to stop them from entering her house, but it's no use. They use Emily's house as their own. They sleep in her bed, they eat her food, and they drink, I assume, her parents' alcohol. Then they leave, and before they depart, they leave a parting gift, a copy of Kamenyan before he died. Kamenyan tries to move on, but he can't accept it. He can't let Emily live this lie and not let her properly process Kamenyan's death. So he sets out to find somebody who will help him take down the Ghoulfather. With much failure, he finds Nate. Retelling Nate the story, he agrees to help him take down the Ghoulfather. So Nate contacts Lord Enma to locate the Ghoulfather. And you may be thinking, when did they meet Lord Enma? And to that I say, 1, I didn't f***ing give you permission to talk. And 2, the second Yorkwatch movie was actually made into a book to similar to these books. And they meet Enma in those books, but I can't go over them because I don't speak Japanese. Anyway, Enma is sick, so we can't exactly join them. But he does somewhat help. He sends out every Mirapo to look for the UFO hideout location. They do find it, located in the middle of the mountains. Nate also gets a new watch upgrade because the marketing department needed more because Nate needed a new upgrade for this dangerous adventure. They head out, and after fighting some of Ghoulfather's minions, they head to the UFO, which proceeds to transform into a tower. They head inside and meet Gale's kitchen, which they proceed to brutally cut in half. Then they meet the Robra, which they proceed to kill also. Tamyan goes up to the 3rd floor by himself to go fight Agent X. We get a flashback to when Tamyan was alive to show he has a really good sense of smell. He gets smoked by Agent X. Then Jibanyan comes in before Agent X actually curb stomps Tamyan. Sad thing is, Jibanyan misses all the attacks and also gets smoked by Agent X. That's when Tamyan smells something. Heat haze. Yeah, he smells heat haze. I don't know how he smelled that. It's a visual thing, but okay, I guess the other god likes different. They summon Lazara to move all the heat, which somewhat helps. I say somewhat because they also have to summon Lilu to full Agent X. So they do eventually defeat him and move on to floor 4. And they meet the Ghoulfather and holy that's a lot of alcohol. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bottles of alcohol. Jesus Christ, get this guy an intervention. Jibanyan and Tamyan try to attack the Ghoulfather but are unsuccessful. That's when he summons all his men back by pressing a mysterious button. They provide a backstory of how they got there. Short story shorter, they got sent into space by ancient Enma. They found a spaceship that was piloted by aliens. Not yokai, but actual aliens. So they came to Earth and started doing evil shit because they're evil. Oh, and the spaceship is powered by magical stone that grants any wish. The Ghoulfather kills his minions, and after 2 pages of monologuing, Tamyan gets fed up with it and attacks the Ghoulfather and gets stomped and killed. Yes, killed. No joke. He's dead. Also, I don't think his leg is supposed to do that. The Ghoulfather reveals he's using Nate and his friends to allow Enma. So Jibanyan attacks the Ghoulfather and he also gets killed. After that, Whisper touches at the button to make a wish, but it doesn't work because the Ghoulfather's first wish was only for it to work when he allows it to. Then Zazzle arrives and also killed by the Ghoulfather. Then Yanmarai shows up. You wanna bet what happens to him? I'll give you 3 seconds. Yep, he's killed too. But the Ghoulfather had to turn in Dawn's Pharisee before he can, so I guess he put up somewhat of a fight. So Nate summons Enma after Dawn's Pharisee beats him to the verge of death, and Enma just beats the shit out of him. The Ghoulfather tries to use his stone, but oops, Ilu, and Nate uses the actual stone to bring everybody back. And Enma uses all his power to knock out Dawn's Pharisee. Since Tamyan didn't help Emily, Zazzle sends a Mirapo to her house. Tamyan walks into her house and decided to break her illusion. Then she just looks at Tamyan and starts talking to him. She reveals she only pretended to believe that the fake Tom was the real one to make Tamyan happy. They hug and the book ends. While I do think the more serious parts are a bit silly and out of place, since most of the time this is a humor style manga, I still do think this is a cool story. I did feel bad when Tamyan got replaced by the fake cat at the start, which is more emotion than 95% of these books made me feel. The best chapter is chapter 126, Boiling Bath Liver Yokai. Brunk just chilling in Nate's bathroom with Nate having to deal with it is a really funny and interesting idea. The best chapter is chapter 138, Yokawatch Blaster's Treasure Raiders arc Boogie Mom. The hardest I laughed when reading this was when Komosada tried to exercise Boogie Mom. The best chapter is chapter 150, Nate Adams and Yokawatch Arcane. I'm gonna be honest, I'm only picking this one because Nate gets a new watch and I don't want to go over 2 separate chapters. It's not a chapter this time. Actually, it's one of the mini comics in between because who is this? This one actually has a plot. Chapter 118, Demon Island Part 1. A mysterious yokai from a foreign land arrives as briefly befriends Nate with a request to ask Nate. This is just Tamyan's story with his champion. He's this twist villain. God damn it. Before I start, I actually have something to say. I couldn't find digital files for books 19 to 23. Trust me, I looked on legal and illegal sites. But I have the solution. As you saw before, I had the books physically, and I have a recording device. Wave hi, Komodok's hand cam. Yes, I did buy a phone stand for this video. No, I will probably never use it again. I'm sorry it has to be like this, but I literally searched everywhere. Anyway, on to the book. Best chapter for this book is, to be honest, they're all kind of the same. There's no really standout chapter in my opinion. I guess chapter 205, Classic Yokai Full Kappa. I don't really have a reason, I just kind of spun a wheel. Oh, there's a little disclaimer at the start of this book. The reset button. A button that turns everything back to its original state. Wait. They're resetting everything? Like all the friendships, all the watches, all the stories gone? That's so fucking stupid. So the author of this book decided it was more likely forced to reset everything. I don't know why Noriyuki would do this. There's like 3 books left in the series and no time to make this a worthwhile decision. Whoever decided this was a fucking dumbass. I'm not even gonna go over the chapter, I'm actually so mad. I guess chapter 232, 7 Gods of Fortune, is the best one. I don't know, they all feel the same again. Also, I just noticed Jibanyan doesn't go nya now, he goes meow. This has been in every book so far, and I don't know how I didn't notice it until now. Also, where the hell is Haley? She hasn't been in like 6 books in a row so far. I miss her. She didn't die in the reset, she appears in the final book. Again, they all feel the same, and I feel like I'm just picking a chapter to pick one at this point. They all have similar jokes, problems, and similar everything. Book 23, the final one. It has an actual ending, which is cool. Long and convoluted story short, Whisper gets kidnapped by the Higher Yokai Council and has his memory wiped. Nate gets his watch taken and sets out to get Whisper back from the Crank-Eye. But since his memory was wiped, they have to go to a vault. Also, hidden in the vault is every single dangerous yokai ever. Nanma just breaks it to get Whisper back. Also releasing every dangerous yokai. It's saluted that Nate and his friends get all the yokai back in containment. It's a fine ending, but like the wipe 3 books ago, it really makes me not be able to fully enjoy this ending. Well, that's all the books. I feel like they're okay, but they could use a lot of improvement. I think one of the main problems is how repetitive it is. I know we skipped over a lot, but most of the chapters feel less like they're trying to figure out how to deal with the yokai and more like the author seeing how many running gags they can fit into a chapter. I did like the story-centered parts a lot. It made the book stand out from other Yokai Watch media, but I know the main focus was humor. But I think if they lean into the story aspect mixed with the humor, I think it could be something really special and unique. In conclusion, I do think you should read these books, but not all of them. If I were to recommend any to you, there'd be books 1, 2, 8, 9, 13, 20, and 23. Also, Noriyuki Kunichi in level 5, please make a story-set manga about Haley and the Detective Agency. We still fucking peak. Please, Haley and the best character and more screen time, please. Anyway, peace out.